Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today, Veryon Tracking versus CAMP, Why Switch? I want to thank everyone for taking time out of their day to be with us. I have the pleasure of introducing our hosts and our guest panelists today. Please take a moment to introduce yourselves. We have Raul from Veryon. We have got Joe, SVP of Maintenance at Fly Exclusive, and Chris, DOM at Fly the Whale. We do have a few rapid fire poll questions for our audience today. First, we would love to hear, what maintenance tracking software are you currently using? Joe, Chris, can you share what systems you've used? Has it just primarily been CAMP and Veryon Tracking? Do you have any experience with Traxall?
So this is Joe with Fly Exclusive. We previously had CAMP system. We still currently have Corridor on our MRO side, but we are shifting to Veryon Work Center here in the future. We did have Quantum also prior to CAMP, so it's been a kind of a progressional thing. But CAMP was our major system there for a while, and then we shifted over to Veryon. So that's what we're dealing with here.
Yeah, what about you, Chris?
Primarily CAMP as well. I've also used other systems like Traxall, like CMP, for maintenance tracking, and then for maintenance recording, Quantum, before switching over to Veryon for both tracking and recording.
Our next poll question, what is most important to you regarding your maintenance tracking platform? I know there are a lot of options up here, and make sure that if your option is not presented, to please share in the chat and let us know. And last, our question is, how long of a delay have you experienced because an analyst wasn't immediately available to support you? Joe, Chris, would love to hear your feedback on this again. Chris, how long has your delays been because of a dedicated analyst?
Unfortunately, it has been over a day, more than once in the past. In order to get, either a question or in order to get tasks updated or modified and so on and so on. Mm-hmm. You can imagine how, that affects an operation.
Yeah, Joe, has that been your experience as well?
We do have some delays sometimes. As far as, with the size of our fleet, I probably can't give you an event or a day-to-day and how long it takes, but typically we don't have any issues. If I ever do have an issue, I reach out and I get a response immediately. I will say that it's, as far as a comparison from CAMP to Veryon, if you're looking for entries to be uploaded in for analysts from the analyst side on CAMP, or if you want something corrected from CAMP systems, I am very pleased with Veryon over CAMP when it comes to that. I mean, if you need something updated or corrected or applied, and it's something that you can't do within Veryon. Veryon's very responsive to that, and much more so than CAMP ever was.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that quick feedback and for our audience engaging in the polls. Now I would love to hand it over to Raul, Chris, and Joe for the panelist portion of the webinar.
All right. Well, first off, I want to thank everyone for taking time out of their day to join us. Just had a few questions. We'll keep it high level. I know every operation out there is different. Everyone works in their own, type of vertical. So just wanted to make these questions something applicable to anyone's, day to day. So first thing is, I've been doing this for a while, going on 5 years. I know that talking to some people who are on CAMP, it's something that you've probably been used to. You've been on it for either your whole career or for a long time, and making a switch is always a little bit difficult, and sometimes scary, right? So, one of the things, I just wanted to ask Chris and Joe here, what prompted you to look into other options and see what else was out in the market? Obviously you guys probably went out there, looked at other competitors other than us, and, went while you were on CAMP. But, Joe, I'll start with you. Like, what got you to start looking?
It was the data corrections, things like that were going on, the timely delays in getting data corrections uploaded and done that way. There was obviously a cost issue there that drove me also to shop for something else. It just seemed like a significant cost for something that wasn't giving us a return on investment as far as a service to us that was usable. Timely delays, again, I go back to that. The interface, also, if you've ever dealt with CAMP, very, very restrictive, and we'll probably get down into that a little bit further on, but CAMP was very restrictive on what we could access as far as information. For reporting reasons, if we wanted to do Power BI reports, if we wanted to do Tableau reports or anything like that, if you want to extract data for real-time reporting and real-time updates and real-time anything, it was very, very slow to update and very hard to access. So that overall, that's what drove us to look for something that possibly would replace CAMP.
Gotcha. And Chris, what about you? What got you to start looking?
Yeah, a lot of the things are similar to what Joe mentioned. The fact that you have to deal with a dedicated analyst, that you have to send him documents to update the task. And that itself causes delays. And, we're an operation that we use live tracking, and we also use integrations with other systems to automatically push our do lists, keep our fleet operation on and all that. And when you wait for an analyst to do all those updates for you, it delays that side of the house. And then even you can try to do updates yourself, but the system is not, the easiest to navigate and use. Pretty complex, and if you're not on top of it, mistakes can happen. So that's you kind of restricted to working with an analyst here. Besides that, we also wanted a platform that can do more on maintenance tracking, and that's kind of what triggered us to start looking at other products. Integrate inventory, work orders and workflow, maintenance reporting, and all that was what forced us, or led us to look at the different provider. And the Veryon was the one that offered all of those things and crossed all the boxes that we have.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know that could be challenging, especially, you got, aircraft that just had maintenance done on it. Maybe the night before, pilots walk in, the aircraft is still red and it's not updated, right? So how do you get that message across to the people who are taking a look at it?
Yeah,
and maintenance is saying, hey, the work is done, but the pilots are like, well, the system doesn't say that. And it's kind of like, well, we gotta go a little ad hoc here. So not being able to do your updates in real time, or having the ability to work a little bit autonomously versus depending on your analyst. I'm sure that probably made things a little more.
Yeah, I can kind of comment on that, Raul. What it did for us is forced us to use a separate system. It forced us to design some type of system that we could say, okay, we've went through all this RTS packages. This airplane's actually green. It can fly. All the paperwork is good. It's just we don't have a clean report yet because none of those has been updated.
Right.
That's what it kind of did for us. Is it with Veryon, as long as you're updating as you go, and as long as you're putting in your data, you can see real time the progression of that job. With the digital signature, here I was just talking about this before we got on, but we have a full MRO here, 145 operation, and if we have our technicians on the floor over there access to our Veryon account on that job or work order, they can go in and sign off those tasks as they go through the job. So we can see progression on the job, whereas minimizes us having to call and ask for updates, or someone going over, having a meeting twice a day to see where we're at on things, and also to see what you're projecting to RTS and when, and all those things, part status. It's a very real-time way to see what's actively going on that job at any time, if you use it the way it's intended. it will give you the information that you need. Whereas CAMP is more of a, cut a work order, send it to a vendor, they do all the work, they send you back to their version of an MTR or RTS package, then you have to manually go in, update everything, and then wait for a clean report to get posted to where it can all be done real time in Veryon. So one of the benefits.
Right.
Couldn't agree more as well. I mean, that's exactly it. We're in 2024. The flight department, the maintenance departments have changed so much that you want to use all the tools that are available to make your operation more productive and efficient, and that's what Veryon does.
Yeah, like I don't know, it'd be very interesting to put a number to that on what that gave you guys back on a return, which I'm sure is something. Hey, as long as it's working and making more efficiencies for you guys, I mean, that's only gonna put smiles on your guys' faces every day. But
well, I think that's very important, Raul, that you mentioned that, because one of the things that I've found with Veryon is that your company seems to be very responsive to the needs of the customer. And when we communicate with you and you've been here and seen our operation, from a senior VP level, I'm wanting cost per flight hour. I'm wanting all these different, what's my maintenance man hour per flight hour, cost per flight hour, what's my total downtime, what's my total uptime, what's my delayed parts, what are the reasons for those delayed parts, is it availability, is it shipping, what are my major factors that are impacting my availability of my fleet, and being able to analyze that. And if the data point is not there within Veryon, the receptiveness that you guys have of saying, hey, what is it that you need? And then, hey, we're gonna, you can see how Veryon has been progressing to give the customer what he's asking for, what will eventually what will give the customers what they ask for, that the camp just doesn't seem to be even acknowledging that there's a need for.
Right. Yeah, and that's a perfect segue. I mean, everyone, the first thing that I would say, number one thing I do when I get on the phone with a customer, number one complaint is, man, my camp renewal is through the roof. And, that's it. The cost is the first thing, right? You gotta budget to operate an aircraft. Now, the cost of the maintenance tracking is exceeding budget or whatever it may be. It's obviously one of the first things that brings people to the table, with a few other reasons that could be out there. But other than just what's actually on the invoice, what we cost versus what camp costs, right? What are, Joe, you went into the reporting and things like that, but Chris, what were some of the cost savings outside of us just being cheaper? What were some of the cost savings that you were able to experience after making the move?
Yeah, besides the direct subscription, let's say, cost
Right.
savings, which were significant, especially when we have multiple aircraft that you're switching over, all the functionality, the productivity and effectivity, the workflow, all those things contribute towards savings. When your aircraft is on the ground less or in maintenance less because your processes are more efficient with Veryon, then that will give you more uptime. That will give you more, a return there. So,
Like, I'm going to use a very generic example. Like, how much time when you were on camp did you used to spend on like updating paperwork wise and doing the maintenance tracking portion of an aircraft for like 100-hour inspection? Like just something simple, something that you've done many times in your life before us and now with us. I mean, what would you say? Was it like I went from doing 3 hours of paperwork down to 1, or like what would you say was the change?
Yeah, I mean,
pretty much.
for us, it was about a 20% reduction in time. We did a time to task evaluation before we decided to go. We've done time to task additionally after the incorporation of Veryon, because we've added applications to to work with Veryon. So we wanted to see how much that impacted our original time, before we decided to go further with whatever it was we were trying to do. So we're pretty methodical here about it, evaluating what we currently have and what those processes and time to tasks are within CAMP, and then what they are in Veryon, what our savings were on that. And then as we add, for lack of better words, application integration to Veryon, we evaluate those additional steps that are required within either Veryon or that application to see how much it increases our actual work, productivity or work load, if you will. Yeah, Douglas, you asked a question about camp corridor transfer. As far as, so one of the things about corridor camp that we had a problem with is we could never get camp and corridor to talk seamlessly. In other words, they advertise in camp that you can build a work order in camp and then send it over to corridor and then grab it and upload it into corridor. We were never able to 100% crack that to where I could trust that what I built in camp went into corridor. And then as we transitioned from flight docs or Veryon to our MROs still continuing to use corridor. So we've been on Veryon for about a year now, I think, or a little more.
A year and a half coming up. Yep.
Our MRO has been on corridor and is still currently today on corridor. We have outside customers that come in, so it's a good way to separate the internal to the external. However, in the future, we will probably and for sure transition solely into Veryon and just forego camp, especially now that we're migrating our inventory over from corridor into Veryon. So to answer your question, there's no significant hurdles moving from corridor to Veryon. There would be significant hurdles moving from Veryon to corridor. As far as how we do business here, because we have so much accessibility with Veryon on an API side that our operations, our MRO, and our charter side, we can all kind of through an API within another application, we can see everything each other's doing. In other words, we know when airplanes are coming in, we know when airplanes are supposed to go out. There's no possible way we could do that in camp that I know of. And I have sat with, them to the point of trying to tie financial programs or applications like Coupa or Sage Intacct or QuickBooks is fairly easy, but if you want a general ledger and then you want an actual procure to pay and you want to somehow integrate those in, you are completely eliminated from doing that as far as I know within corridor. However, we've gotten the Work Center application on. There is accessibility there through APIs. We're working with Coupa. We're working with Sage Intacct. Those APIs can be created and made, and now your maintenance data tracking system that produces invoices and does all this work and orders parts and POs and all this stuff is now integrated with a procure to pay, which gives you an ability to approve certain levels of expenditure and or restrict it. And then also it gives you a way to three-way match everything with your general ledger. And so from a business perspective, and I don't know, again, I don't want to go too in depth on that stuff because I don't know my true audience out here, but that from my level as senior VP here, it's one of the biggest hurdles that we've had to try to overcome, and Veryon seems to be getting us to the finish line on those things.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you in the audience who don't know, Veryon is built on an open API with a lot of exposable endpoints. Some of our customers like Exclusive take a lot of advantage into that. So it helps them get other software in different parts of the business talking to one another. And Douglas, just to go into the replacement for Corridor, which Joe mentioned, is an add-on module that we have that's called Work Center, which we released last year, which is capable of doing essentially about everything that Corridor could do for you for your internal fleet, without having to bounce it between two systems. So it's all within the one umbrella. But yeah, just going on here. I mean, I know, Chris, Joe, you guys use the system, and I'm sure that you guys, both of you have your own respective teams that are in the system as well, right? They're using it every day. I know that, and I warn everyone, I have conversations, business conversations, demos with a lot of people all across the world. And usually it's a little bit of a culture shock, right? They went from using CAMP for however many years they were using it to moving on to Veryon, which is, if anyone takes a look at our system and wants to do a demo, you'll see that there's a drastic difference in the way that we look, feel, the way that you navigate through it. How was the experience on the move? Like when the team got this new toy in their hand, right? How long did it take for them to get up to speed on the training, and how long did it, how efficient did it end up being for you guys in that aspect?
So Chris, I'll go first, I guess. I mean, I think we were the limiting factor, Raul. I think that switching from camp to flight docs bring to light a lot of issues on time compliance items, compliances that may have not been tracking correctly. There was a lot of things that we had to, for lack of better words, fix after we brought the information from camp into Veryon, and then as we validated Veryon information to ensure it was correct with our compliance times and all that, it drove us to have to make corrections. And I think that delayed a bit, but I would say I'm pretty sure we still were implemented ahead of schedule. I think we were more the limiting factor as far as the transition. And I would say that it was not a good feeling to know that we had issues in tracking, but I'm glad that it brought it to light and resolved the issues. So that's from my end. Over to you, Chris.
I guess I'm not the only one that experienced, issues or finding issues with tracking.
You're not alone.
Switched over. So, that itself tells a lot from a regulatory perspective and safety and all that. But as far as the end user and how we experience that, there was a huge, tremendous difference between the two programs. It's like you're having like a flip phone, or somebody that's used to a flip phone.
That's my line. I'm giving you a flip phone. I'm handing you an iPhone. You've been using a flip phone. Yeah, that's
exactly. So the majority of the my team, is younger people or people that are they're using technology a lot. So so the switch was very smooth because Veryon is a twin, it's a smartphone technology platform basically.
Right.
That everything is there. It's very user friendly. So it made that part of the transition very smooth. The training that was provided in the beginning to managers and also down to the last technician was also very helpful, and it made that transition very smooth.
Awesome.
There's a huge difference between the two platforms on that.
And for those that are on the call, we do our motto is we want you to be experts on the system and not leave after frustrations of not knowing how to use the system, for example. So we do our client service team. They do webinar trainings, which it's like training for all once a month. We also do one-on-one trainings just to get the team up to speed, especially after the onboarding process. So that is at no expense to you. Please take advantage of it. We just do virtual trainings, and we make sure that everyone is taking full advantage of the system so that you guys can enjoy all the things that our great engineers built for you.
Yeah, Raul, one lesson learned that I'll just comment on with that last statement is the training that you guys provide. Lesson learned from our integration, take full advantage of the training that's provided on the front side. And from a management level, you have to almost force everyone to complete the training and to use the system, because they're just the muscle memory is to go back and try to relate the old way of doing things to the new way of doing things. And when you have the training that's provided, I think there needs to be another training that takes place maybe a month or so after you are actually using the system, because there'll be questions that come up that I think that Veryon could advise on that would make your operation much more efficient. So I would say that initial training is very, very important, and is from a management perspective, do not allow that to be foregone. And the other thing is to plan to have Veryon come back and or somehow assist within a month or two, because they will be able to. I mean, John Cosi was instrumental in actually helping us with processes that made us so much more efficient after the implementation.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the normal, I had to do 20 clicks to pull up this report. It
Yeah.
kind of is a little bit of a change when you can do it in about 3 clicks on our site. And people are like, they can't believe sometimes that it's as easy. Some people are, when I do a demo, they're like, it's not that easy. I'm like, no, it really is. I'll show you. It's not that hard to pull a report or do something or create a filter or anything like that. So it is a very manipulable.
One more thing, the training, the great thing about the training and the platform itself is it could be tailored to your operation and what you want to get out of the system,
right,
instead of, a generic training on how to, pull a report or update a task, on and so forth.
Right. Yeah, and there's different, like I said, we got people of every type of operation. We have 91s, 135s on this call, different size operations, some people that outsource their maintenance, some people that do it in-house. So the system is very malleable when it comes to that and how your operation handles those things. Which leads right into like the next question on when it comes to the support, right? So, Veryon's model is different compared to CAMP, what you're used to. We are different because of the way that we operate. We are legitimately 24/7, 365. You call, more than likely within about 2 rings, you're going to have a live person on the phone with you, and that person's going to be able to help you out from top to bottom, whether it's adding a user to updating compliance to I can't find this serial number. You name your question and someone's there. So how, when it came to that 24/7 support, like outside of the training, right? Just like the fact that, you could pick up the phone and call someone. I mean, how did that change for you guys? Because I know you guys went from having a dedicated analyst to now, I mean, some people would consider it a luxury to like, now I have anyone who can help me out. So what did you guys see there as a change on that?
So for us, I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
It's okay. You can go
for
first.
us, it was huge because as a 135 operator charter service, we fly from 8 a.m. to, let's say, 8 p.m. Our maintenance day essentially starts at 8:30 p.m. That's when the airplanes are done for the day, pilots are back in the hotel, technicians are getting on the airplane to hopefully have it RTS by 8 a.m. the next morning, so we're flying revenue again. So if you have to wait until your analyst responds to you, from the camp side, it could be the difference of you missing an entire day of revenue. And so the responsiveness, the accessibility 24/7, we run our maintenance control ops center about 22 hours a day. There's only about a 2-hour gap there, and we're filling that with planning. And then our MRO operations is 24/7. And so our vendors rely on us to answer questions and research things and do those things that we need to progress the maintenance and make it more efficient. So, I mean, it's a huge difference for us anyway. Just the simple verification of, hey, I'm removing this serial number, but it's not the same serial number that you have in Veryon. Can you verify this?
Right.
And it's just simple things like that can delay you an entire day, or sometimes some cases even more. So yeah, it's big. Go over to you, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying 24/7. I can definitely, speak from personal experience. Don't ask me why, but I had to call at 2 a.m. one night, and I got a real person answering the phone, not, a voicemail, not a callback, not I'll transfer you or whatever. It was a real person, very knowledgeable that
Or a call station in a different country.
yeah, was able to answer my question and help me at that very moment, which was great. And it was the beginning when we had first started using Veryon, and I was, really happily pleased and surprised by that. So the customer service department, it's great. They are all very knowledgeable. And if you have an issue that they cannot solve within, a few minutes, you'll get a call back or an email back from a more experienced member of the team or development team if it has to. And I never had an issue not being solved, which is great. And the other thing is any concern that you have, any input you have, any recommendation that you might have, you can pass it over to them. And we see after we've used the program for almost 3 years now, all our inputs have been taken into consideration and have been implemented into the system to help the end user and to help us achieve what we
Right.
need and want. So that's great.
Yeah, I wanted to I see Doug, Douglas, you asked a question here about the migration of data. So I think Chris and
Doug's tearing it up.
he's going in, he's going in heavy. I like it. So just and I'll let Chris and Joe here. This is an off the cuff question here, which is also one that I wanted to include, but I'm glad you're asking. So the data migration, right? We do an onboarding of the aircraft and we bring over the current status of the aircraft. So we pull the camp reports, current status run, your ADs, SBs. And also, by the way, if you are on a special tracking program, if you're a double AIP or high utilization, low utilization, or if you decide to be changing at that time, that's something that's going to be handled during your onboarding call. As for camp, we are capable of getting the historical folders that are in camp and cloning those and bringing them over. Those will be placed into the document section of the platform. Reasons being they're not formatted the way that we have our system formatted, but we do make them available to you so that you have all of your, your work cards, your logbook entries, your 8130s and things like that may have been in the system before. You can find those in your document section. To combat like the historical lookups, and if you want to work with a company, there is, and I believe Chris and both Joe are on Bluetail. They could scan in all of your bankers boxes and all of your historical documents and have them OCR'd, which is a company that we also integrate with. So that is part of our packages that we have that integration out of the box with them. But that is how the migration process would work. And I'll let Joe and Chris, that is something I did want to ask, which was, tell me about the migration experience. Cause I know that's like the scary, like 800-pound gorilla in the room when you're talking about making a move is like, man, my data, right? The aircraft's most valuable possession is his data, right? So how did you guys, like how did that process go with you from I guess the first welcome call to the end of your enrollment?
So Douglas, I think you asked the other question about Snowflake, which I wrote a note here on because that one, and then I'll get into the data migration. But if you're using a company, I think what you're getting at is Snowflake's a data repository of all mass data, and we use the company called Maxa to take all of our data and put it into a huge repository, and then they pull out dashboarding for production efficiency, all those things. So no issues there. The only thing that I would say is if you want to be specific on what you're looking for, you have to have a data point, which Veryon pretty much mirrors anyone out there as far as data points. You would have to obviously have that data point in there. So yes, the Snowflake would work with that and I know that from experience. And then the historical data. So we shifted and submitted for electronic record keeping And Bluetail is an FAA approved electronic record keeping. And so it completely reduces your paper. And especially with being that we have the MRO here, you know, for us to maintain records on both the 135 and the 145 side, we'd need a hangar to store all of our paperwork in. So that being FAA approved, Bluetail's a great asset for us. As far as like the data coming over, if you're looking for history on a timed item, you just look at the last, you know, at the actual date of replacement or the date of the maintenance that was performed that's currently in Veryon. You get that date and you switch over to basically a file folder system for each tail, and you just go by that month and you're within, you know, five minutes of finding whatever you need. I don't know if Chris, you're familiar with that too, but that's how
Yeah.
I use it.
Exactly. Like when the data transfer over, let's say you have a life limited part of a serialized component that had been replaced, and the last replacement date and serial number that was recorded in CAMP will move over to Veryon. Now all you have to do is take that, and if you want an actual you know, 8130 or logbook entry or whatnot, then you can go back to the folder and find it that way, or back to your logbooks and find it out.
And all history, as far as that's concerned, you can go back to whatever was in CAMP or whatever system that you loaded over. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And from the point moving forward that you would come on to Veryon, everything is now searchable within our formatting, and you can go to a task level, pull the work completed tab, see every single work completed that had ever been done within Veryon, so that you don't have to go back to the folder system. So you start building that history within our system, and then it's much easier to go in and navigate to those pieces. But for the historical stuff, it would require going back to the folder system, like, and it's pretty much a mirror of the way that CAMP is, which is usually like, you know, year, month, day, open the day, there's your work completed card. It's the same thing that you would have on our side.
Yeah, I almost like it that way better, because it keeps the clutter out of your actual working, your dashboard, if you will, or your actual work. So,
Right.
I mean, it's I don't know. I guess I kind of prefer that. And also, typically you can in CAMP it was pretty clunky to try to go through all that stuff and then dig through and try to find things. But a Bluetail, I will say, not to get on that bandwagon, but Bluetail's pretty amazing too with search capabilities. So that's also something that we use here at Fly Exclusive.
Yep.
Yeah.
As far as I wanted to touch on the enrollment process question that you asked really quickly.
Yeah.
I've actually done every enrollment that you can offer. I think I've done enrollment for CAMP. I've done enrollment for spreadsheets, and I also enrolled my fleet twice when we switched over from a regular tracking program to a AAP, a completely custom program. So the enrollment process, I would say, was smooth and fairly quick. You know, I was asked to provide some reports or access to the tracking to pull the reports, and then everything was moved over. You enroll with the dedicated, you work with a dedicated enrollment team. So I was contacted by an enrollment analyst and said, hey, this aircraft is enrolled. Here's the profile. Here's some things that we want you to review that we found during the enrollment process. They were tagged, easily searchable, and able to find and see what's wrong with them with comments and all that. So
Right.
once all those have been solved, you do your final review and you're good to go. Same thing with a AAP. I mean, our program was completely custom. I work with a dedicated analyst, enrollment analyst, or member of the enrollment team.
Onboarding team would be dedicated so that
Yep.
they take the project on. Yeah.
And that went very smoothly as well. I was really happy with the end result because it was completely custom inspection. Yep.
Yeah. And going back to one of Joe's comments that I just wanted to plug in really quick, but for you guys who are asking about the electronic records, signatures, e-logbooks and things, Bluetail is compliant with the FAA when it comes to electronic records, and us along here at Veryon, we are compliant with AC 120-78A. So for electronic record signatures and e-logbooks as well, you do have the luxury of if you're a 91 operator, it's pretty easy, but as a 135, you could apply to move over to e-records and know that we got you covered on that end for the way that we have everything built and structured in our system. I got 2 questions left. I know we're coming up on time. If we got to go a couple minutes over, I think we'll be good. But the little myth out there, I just wanted to do a myth buster thing really quick. There's this notion that's been out there in the market, and it's a comment that I hear on a lot of calls is, well, the value of my aircraft and it being on camp. My response to that is, well, are you going to say that there's 4,500 devalued aircraft in the market? That's the first thing I say back. But what was you guys probably had an internal discussion about it. The aircraft, for most people, for most makes and models out there, a lot of these aircraft are leaving the manufacturer with camp, unless if the customer's electing to come with us from the start. Some manufacturers have opened the door. They've offered us as an off-the-line option. Textron, which I know Joe and Chris, both of your fleets are very Textron heavy. You can now buy an aircraft and leave with Veryon. But how did that discussion go internally when you guys were talking about the move and decided to do it? Did it play a big factor in it, or where's your true belief, I guess, is on that statement?
You want to go ahead? Go ahead, Chris.
I don't think I agree with that statement. I don't think, aircraft enrolling CAMP versus Veryon will have a greater value. I don't see where that's coming from.
The value is in the data, right? Like when you...
Exactly. And what Veryon offers, it's, I would say better than CAMP. So, what the aircraft, would valued more now? No, I don't agree. I think it's a myth. I don't know what you think, Joe.
No, I mean it was definitely a concern within the company when we decided to do the shift. I mean, we're a fleet of 100 aircraft, and we have CJs, CJ3 pluses. We've got more coming. We've got XLs and all the way through XLS, XLS pluses. We've got Sovereigns, Citation 10s, and we just got our first Challenger now, Challenger 350, and then we have the Gulfstreams, the Gulf G4s, so G4 SPs. Which were on CMP for the Gulfstreams were on CMP forever, and then we finally decided to shift those over too. But we were skeptical, and not we as maybe the company here. The younger generation's more acceptable to it than the older generation is. So there, you gotta be conscious of who your owners are, what they're used to, what the DOMs that are out there that are along with those operators, because we do a lot of leasebacks, we do fractional ownerships, we do lots of different things. We also have the MRO over here, so we have customers coming in. So it was a concern of ours, but I joke about this now from the MRO side, because we'll have customers come in for delivery on their airplanes, and we're going through their compliance data, and they see us using flight docs on one screen, and then they say, "Hey, what's that?" And then they start asking questions on it, and then it's like, man, that's easy, that's quick, that's that. So then so yes, I understand that there is a concern out there, but typically it's because you have those customer owners that are or DOMs out there, whoever, that are just used to one thing that they've been using forever, and they're just not into the Veryon, but once they start looking at it, using it, reporting out of it, it's like anything. It doesn't devalue the airplane. I mean, it's tracking the same thing. So from a value perspective, it's only a mental thing.
Right. Understood.
And people are scared to change it, so that also
is
a huge factor,
And I mean, you gotta respect some of those owners, the majority of our owners are not 6-year-old kids, or guys or women, men,
Unless
whatever you
they
want
bought
to
a
call
lot of Bitcoin, right?
it. Well, it takes a while to accumulate worth, right? So
Right.
you gotta be a little older unless you were born into it.
Last question here. I'm going to wrap it up. Joe, this one's probably targeted to you. Working with your operation since day one, and talking about everything from how we're going to do it, what we're going to do, what we're going to implement, and things like that. I know, in the discussions, a lot of the big reason why, Flag Exclusive found the value in Veryon was our integration capabilities, right? You guys have an immense fleet, immense amount of different softwares, all need to talk to one another. Without that, it's either, chinks in, it's going to be breaks in the chain, and it's going to cause disruptions, right? And delays of getting you, or duplicate entry, sometimes more than duplicate, right? So what did when it came to the integrations, how, I know is a big factor, but maybe you can elaborate on the difference, right? You guys were using CAMP, you went to Veryon. What all were you able to finally get to start talking to one another? I know you've already mentioned a couple, you've dropped a couple names like Coupa, Sage, and things like that, but I know there's more to it, and the data points that you were able to get from it.
Yeah, it's just accessibility through those APIs is the biggest thing that I can, to say. We use we use a program called Airtable for our operations side, for all of our flight planning and flight following and customer tracking and things like that. So we developed it ourselves through our development team here. We did have Avionics at one time, and then we transitioned to Airtable, and we built our own thing. Well, with that, we built different dashboarding, if you will, or different applications within that, that take different data points from Veryon and different, other locations, and they bring it in.
Right.
And so if you want to see what your current availability of aircraft is, it's taking data points out of Veryon and it's throwing them on an Airtable integration that produces a Tableau report, basically. And now your operations and your maintenance are linked, and it has nothing to do or no additional work for that maintenance person. Right. It's just seamless
in real time.
Yeah. So if the ability to integrate those APIs within there is it's not adding any work, and it's also given maximum of visibility to your organization, to whoever needs it, and you can manipulate that any way you want to without security risk. I might add, that's another big thing. You don't have to worry about that, because it's a secure application. So I mean, that's pretty much what we capitalize on. We like I said, we use Blue Teal, we use Veryon, we have Corridor on the MRO side, we have Airtable here. We use AIMS for our scheduled maintenance tracking, or we are going to start using AIMS. We've just recently incorporated that for scheduled maintenance tracking. So we're running through that. We use Maxa for our company, consolidated for production on MRO side, and how we gauge efficiency on our MRO side. We use Maxa. So there's a lot of applications that we use, and it can become overwhelming over time to have all these different things, but then you have no way to connect one to the other. And then when one changes, it affects the other one. And with Veryon, it just seems that there's no issues to that because of the accessibility. And I will say that shout out to Fedor and those guys that work at Veryon for development. Those guys are always working with us and allowing us to progress with everything that we do here at the 135. And I mean, we're just starting here. I mean, we've got 30 more plus deliveries probably coming. We're bringing the Challenger 350s on. We got a long ways to go before we're done. We just became a public company. our MRO is expanding. You know, we're here to stay, and having something like this for our company that allows us to create different applications or access information through other applications it's been great for us.
Yeah, getting hamstringed by technology is probably the last thing anyone wants to be in, especially if the technology's out there, right? But hey, I'm going to be mindful of time here. I'm going to pass the torch back over to Danielle. I wanted to thank you and Joe, Chris. Thank you guys very much for your insights, your comments, all of that stuff. It's been great. I've worked with both of you since day one, and it's been nothing but a pleasure. So continue to, I'm looking forward to working with you guys continuously here. And yeah, Danielle, over to you.
Thanks, Raul.
Thank you.
For anybody out there, for the Veryon team, if you need or have a question, or if any of your potential, if any of the attendees on here would like to ask questions, feel free to share my contact information.
You got it. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks for the opportunity, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank
Of
you,
course,
Chris.
yeah, time flew today, and we just have one more poll for next steps after this webinar. Again, I also want to say, Joe, Chris, thank you so much for your time and sharing your insights. It's been really wonderful to hear about your experience. With that, we will wrap up today, and I just want to wish everyone a good day and to take care.